Hi everyone, it's Rani here again, and this time I have got another of the guest speakers for my the Empowerment Blueprint program. This person's name is Peter. So a little bit about Peter. He made a transition from being a psychotherapist, as I understand, a psychotherapist, to being a prosperous coach. And to me, that's like, wow, how can people do it? And what's been the journey like? So I've been always been intrigued by Peter, and I only came to know about Peter from AGC school when we joined, the first cohort, and we are in the second cohort again.
Mm.
But there was something about Peter. He is not someone who is a show off, so to speak. I find him very grounded. He articulates in a way that you just want to listen. And it's fascinating his journey of transition from being a psychotherapist to showing up in the world as a prosperous coach. And I thought, I really want to know, I want to learn from Peter how he's done that. And I can see that when you speak, Peter, and especially I remember you sharing, I was like taking vigorous notes, like, okay, I really need to get it right. And every time you give, every time we have questions, you are willing to share anything that will help us, and not just me, every single person in the school. And I think we all learn from you how you don't have to be in competition, you don't have to rush to get there. You can be yourself, and you can be a prosperous coach as you go along. So, long story short, I think you are someone who is like a role model of how a prosperous coach can be, and you don't have to rush or be in a hurry for the journey. So, welcome, Peter. Lovely to have you.
Yeah, thank you for your introduction, Rani. It's an honor to be here. I'm delighted whenever you invited me to be part of the program. I didn't know a huge amount about the program whenever I said yes, but I was like, okay, if Rani's running a program, I'm in. I really enjoyed getting to know you over the last, well, it's about a year now. The school's about to start again, and just for me to see the energy and commitment that you brought to that program and to your own transition into coaching was hugely inspirational for me as well. And I loved so much just the way you just brought so much energy and commitment to taking action, to making things happen. Whenever you asked me, it was like, yeah, I'm in. So thank you for having me. Thank you for your introduction. Very kind.
What's your definition of empowerment? Like, I know that your clientele has changed, right? So you used to work with people and do therapy, and then now you're working with corporate clients, you're working with coaches, you have worked with people from different walks of life. With your understanding of people and challenges and helping people as a therapist and helping people as a coach, what do you think ultimately leads to people feeling empowered from, from within?
It's probably not a short, simple answer to this, but I think on a certain level, the work that I do is about helping people to see what's possible, about seeing more of what is possible in their life, and that they, as people who are powerfully creative, we are all powerfully creative, but we don't all know it. And so there's something about helping people to see that there is a life to be lived, not just endured, or there is a life that we can thrive in, not just survive. That as powerful creators, we can make plans and have hopes and goals and dreams, but by how we show up to life, we can create. We can powerfully create the things that we want, and so I think when people see possibility in that way, incredible things begin to happen. When people feel as if they are, life has dealt them a terrible hand of cards, or life is against them, or life's always going to be this way, or I don't have options or choices. We can live life more from a place of almost like as if we're a victim of circumstance. And I think there's something very empowering about helping people to transition from the position of seeing themselves as a victim of circumstance to somebody who, irrespective of their circumstance, can be a powerful creator in their own life. And I think that maybe the piece I'd add to that, I think there's kind of inner work behind that can really support that. I think it's not just about having a dream or having a goal and going and doing it. I know in my own life, I've had a lot of negative beliefs that have kind of hung around, and thoughts that I've had about myself, or thoughts that I've had about the way the world works, or thoughts that I've had about what's possible. Whenever I've kind of tried to just pull myself up by the bootstraps, that worked for a while. In fact, for me, that worked for probably about 20 years until I burnt out trying to keep doing that. I kept trying to make things happen, but I didn't do the inner work, so I was reaching for the stars, but the foundational work had not been done of me understanding the narratives and the stories that I had about who I was. What I found is, as I have learned to become aware of those stories and narratives and let go of those and replace those with new narratives, the possibility for things to happen is still very much there, but it seems to me like they happen more easily and less me pulling myself up by the bootstraps. So I think there's an empowerment piece in the area of possibility, but there's also an empowerment piece of changing the narrative.
You're absolutely right. Someone might hear this and say, like, okay, I'm going to be positive then. I'm going to be positive and go into the space of possibilities. I'm not going to be a victim. But what you are clearly saying here is that there is that inner work that someone can do to see this even deeper. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I think so. Because when our energy or our thinking is driven by the narrative, that tends to be in the past. And I think whenever we shift our attention, when we're looking back at the past, we become very good at knowing what we don't want. When we look to the future and begin to think about what we do want. And I mean, there are so many people that I've worked with over the years. When I ask them the question, what is it that you want? They begin by telling me what they don't want, not what they do want. So I think that's always very illustrative of whether people are thinking about what they want to create, or whether they're caught up with their stories and narratives about the past.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Talking about inner work, I think this is a time to talk about the document.
Sure.
And I have been asking all the previous speakers to describe the document in their own words. And especially if someone has not come across the previous conversations and they are hearing you for the first time, and we are saying document, it's very important for people to understand what it is. So can you say what to you the document means?
It seems to me that the document is like having an operating system transformation. It's almost like, not like from Windows 9 to 10 or 10 to 11, but to something completely different. My operating system, the one that I had, or my old document, if you like, I heard somebody say, and I can't remember exactly who said it once, it may have been Steve Hardison, we all have a document, we don't have one that's written down. And that really struck me that, I had an old document and now I have a new document, and I see my old document as an old piece of software that I wanted to make redundant and replace it with a new piece of software, an operating system that works in the background, but that leads to different outcomes, and it looks different on the screen, and the formatting's different, and it's more user-friendly, and it does things that the old operating system didn't do. So I see it a little bit like that. I'm going to phrase it like that. It's a powerful shift. I created my document in October last year, and I probably spent, to be honest, 2 months after that messing around with it, trying to tweak it to make it perfect, until my coach Ankush said, there's no value in trying to perfect it. It's good enough to go live. Once I did, I started to see some change quite quickly, and started to get feedback from other people that they saw a difference in me. And the biggest, I mean, I had a moment in time which I'll never forget. It was on the last module of the AJC, and my wife Julie happened to be in London, and she came into the room and she knew some people and was speaking to Sachin Sharma, and I kind of walked in on the conversation, and she was telling him how she saw a difference in me, and I was curious and said, "What do you put that down to?" And she said, "I think it's since your document came along." And when my wife is telling me that, that catches my attention.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. It's a different story if you say, yes, I've changed, and your wife said, but your wife is the one who's saying, I noticed a difference. Like, wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. Peter, the next bit of this conversation is about me going through a document, which I have done, and selecting a line that I would like us to have a conversation about.
Sure.
This is the line from your document. I am that. We are all God with a small g. And I wanted you to expand on that, and because I'm curious what you mean by that and why it is there.
I had a religious upbringing. The family I grew up in went to church, and the religion we practiced was quite a strong theme in our world and in my upbringing. And looking back on it, it was like it always seemed as if God was out there and separate. To me, it seemed as if I play no role in the equation here. I'm not part of it. God calls all the shots. And over the last number of years, I guess I've come to see things differently, in the sense that I believe that we are all of that creative energy that caused stars to appear in space, and trees to grow, and people to be on the earth, and there's an energy, and we could call that, I could call that God. Different people will call that different things, but for me, I now see that as part of that energy. I see that I'm off that energy. I may not be that energy, but I'm off that energy. That energy is within me. It is around me. And as a result of that creative energy that I have access to, it's because of that. It's not because of anything particularly special about me in relation to anybody else. We are all incredibly special. We are all incredibly powerful. We all have an incredibility to create because of where we've come from in terms of that energy. We come from that energy, and I guess I see that as God, but with a small g. And because of that, it's like the more that I have come to see that for myself, and I know not everybody will agree with that as a way of seeing things, but it has just seemed to me that what's possible just becomes greater and greater and greater. What's possible in my life, what's possible for my wife and me, what's possible for my kids, it just seems to me that there's no limitation to that, because I can show up as a I guess Steve Chandler would call it, as an owner in my life, where I take responsibility for my life, where I take charge, and in as much as I can, not God with a big G, but God with a small g, that there is a creative potential within me that can make amazing things happen because of where I've come from.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Thank you so much. The reason I brought this up is I had a not repulsion, but I had a hesitation of using God. I would use higher self. I would use like pure consciousness, in the truth of who we are. But I shied away from using the word God, because for me it's like equal to religion, or somehow people think what Rani is talking about is religion. And because I remember for a long time, I say I'm spiritual, and I say, and I'm not religious. So as if I have to immediately keep saying that, no, but just because I'm spiritual doesn't mean I'm religious. Like I'm like justifying myself. And I also felt like if I use the term God, then I have to justify myself. And what I found is that this fear of even the word, like uttering the word God, like, oh, people will judge me, has in a way like caused some illusionary separation of me connecting to love, really connecting to that creative space, really saying that, like, actually, you call it whatever you like to call it, but there is no harm in calling it God.
Mm.
You see what I mean? This is more recently, I have overcome this shyness or this like timidness, as if there's a stigma attached to the word God, to really say that no, God is source.
Mm.
That can be so beautiful rather than me feeling like I will be judged or I need to judge someone if they're using the word God.
Yeah. That makes sense to me. Perfect sense. I really get where you're coming from, Rani. Yeah.
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 This is a beautiful conversation because we talked about the possibility and the creative space and being a creator and not being a victim. And I see in my role as a psychiatrist that people feel done to, people feel like a victim, and not just like patients, but also like clients. They sometimes feel that they're done to, and just knowing that we are not just going around saying, hey, I'm God, I'm across the universe.
No.
We are like with the small g's, we are that
Yeah.
in disguise, a smaller version, or like waves of the ocean, so to speak. And that does something about that experience of empowerment.
Yeah. My thinking about myself has changed a lot. And as a result of that, when I say my thinking about myself, my judgments of myself have changed. I find myself much less critical, judgmental, hostile towards myself. And I feel that I'm in a process of learning to love myself. I wanted to use that word carefully. I don't mean in some sort of soft, romantic kind of way, but genuinely learning to love myself. I mean, and unconditionally. I mean, I have two kids, and I just love them. Whenever they were born, I didn't have a checklist to check off by which, well, I will love them if they check 6 of these 10 parameters or requirements. No, I just love them, and I never applied that to myself ever until just the last number of years. The process that I went through of creating my document, it was the single thing that I've done that's had the biggest shift in my life in terms of me. And I'm going to say it started with starting to like myself, and it's moving towards me actually loving myself. And it's a journey. It's a work in progress. But it's fascinating to see, because I spent many years using my judgments and my criticism of myself as leverage to try to create outcomes. And that's what led to my burnout. It was my judgment of myself. And now, coming from a place of love, acceptance, I still make mistakes. But what I've learned is that I can quite quickly forgive myself, let go of that judgment, and get back to being the person that I want to be in the world. I don't need to hold that over myself for weeks and months and years and create a list of judgments to beat myself over to create outcomes. I can let go of those judgments. And from a place of love, from a place of compassion, for myself, begin to create outcomes in a much more loving way. And what's so interesting for me, as I've let go of judgments of myself, I'm not without judgment of others, but it seems to be that I don't judge people as harshly either. When I come to other people, and whether that's family or friends or clients, and I'm coming from a place of just love, what's fascinating is that it's so much easier to see possibility for them. Yeah. So much easier. And when I can see that and give voice to that, then they can begin to see it. And that's powerful. That creates change. That's empowerment.
Absolutely. Oh, wow. Yeah. The reason why I created the Empowerment Blueprint program is also, in a way, it captures my journey of like all that harshness and and judgment, and using that to be driven and try to achieve goals, to come into a more place of gentleness and forgiveness and love. You can say, I am that we are all love. And when we see love, and when we come from that place, doing deep work, like you said, there's so much possible. Can't help but see a different possibility for ourselves and our loved ones.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when we begin to give voice to that, then people have a chance to see something new. And whenever they see something new, then I mean, I just love watching. I guess in conversations that I have with people, I just love watching over time that what was possible for them 2 months ago, it's gone like it's just so much more. It's like I couldn't see a way out of this. Now I can see a way out of this. Or it's wow, I can see how I can create that now. I can see how I can make this happen. I can see how I can get through this problem or crisis. That's nothing special about me compared to anybody else. How I've started to see myself and to help others see themselves in a similar way. They start to see what's possible in their life with them as a creator in their lives. And that's why I love this work.
Beautiful. Like the people who work with you, Peter, are really, blessed. They're very lucky. They're very fortunate to be doing the work they're doing with you, because as you are loving yourself more and you're seeing more and more, you can't help but distribute that, give that to them. And I'm sure they are getting immense value from working with you. So thank you. Thank you for your work.
I plan to keep doing that.
Of course, of course. Peter, thank you so much for this conversation. This has been absolutely brilliant. And I'm so glad we spoke about love, because that's definitely an ingredient of the Empowerment Blueprint. And do you have any final words to say before we end the conversation?
Probably over the last couple of weeks, as this conversation's been approaching, I mean, I've read your online material, Rani, and I've watched some of the interviews with some of the other people that are doing the master classes. I think what you have pulled together is going to be an incredible program, an incredible opportunity for people. So to those who have signed up, congratulations. To those who are considering it, I would just encourage you to go for it. This is going to be a great program, and I think anybody that signs up is going to benefit massively from it.
Thank you, Peter. And I would like to end with a symbol of the conversation we had. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming. Really.
Pleasure, Annie. Okay.